All right, well, welcome to the Smart Money Community Podcast, where we have a bold mission to help 1 million people get debt free, stay debt free, and achieve financial independence. So if you're ready to rock, here we go. All right, we are live. How's everyone doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Great to be here, Smart Money Community. Good to see you guys. And hey, this week we're going live. We got some member questions that we're going to dive into here. And let's dive right in. First question that came up was a question about life insurance. So, should I have life insurance? What are the guidelines for life insurance? What should I have or what should I have? So, what are your thoughts on life insurance? I was talked into it a few months ago, and looking back, I'm thinking maybe I should have just saved that money to get out of some debt. What are your thoughts? Well, great question. So, a couple things. Number one is going to depend on the type of life insurance you have bought. There's term, whole life, universal life, participate. There's a whole bunch of different insurances out there. So it's going to depend on what you bought, first of all. And then second question that comes to mind, is there even a need for insurance? So maybe we dive through that first. Is there even a need for life insurance? Now, most life insurance agents will tell you there's always a need. You always want to have some insurance. But there's a couple of criteria that I use here to really guide and judge when we work with our clients one-on-one, whether the need for insurance is really there. So number one, the first and probably the most obvious, is there someone depending on you to provide for them? So if you have kids, maybe you have aging parents, that are depending on you to provide for them, maybe a spouse, that type of example, right? If you've got kids who aren't able to really work for themselves yet. Younger kids who, if you were to pass away, would be affected, then yes, there's definitely a need for life insurance. Okay. Now, if you've got older kids, if you got kids that are in their 20s, if you were to pass away, yeah, it would suck, but they could feed themselves, they can fend for themselves, they could go work, make an income, then the need for insurance might not be there. Right. And that would be a specific example. But yeah, if you've got older kids, and you probably don't need to consider life insurance. If you've got younger kids, then the need for it is absolutely there. Next is, do you have a spouse that depends on you, or do you have a spouse that you partner with income wise? They bring in half the income or a portion of income. You bring in a portion of income. Um, and if you were to pass away, your income would be cut in half, and your spouse couldn't, the household couldn't survive on your spouse's income, then yeah, the need for life insurance is there in that example as well. But maybe you're single, maybe you're single here and you provide for yourself, the kids have moved on, and if you're to pass away, like um no one's gonna be like needing your income. And that'd be an example of where you don't need insurance here, right? So do you have someone depending on you, kid, spouse, maybe aging parents in that example as well? Um, it would be the first question I would ask. And if the answer is yes, then yeah, the need for insurance is there, and how much and all that. We'll dive into that in just a sec here. If you don't have anyone depending on you for your income, then yeah, you probably don't need it. Maybe you want to get a small policy to cover your burial, something like that. Or if you can save an emergency fund, 10 to $1,000, $15,000 emergency fund, then really the need for life insurance might not be there. Next is how long do you need it for, and how much do you need? So if you find out that if you use that example there and you find out you do need insurance, well, how long? You can buy 10-year, 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20, 25, 30. You can buy for the rest of your life, right? Um, Here's kind of the criteria that I use in my household. Number one, like there's three things we look at. Number one, at what age will the kids be be able to provide for themselves? So for most kids, that's 18, 20, maybe mid 20s. By that time, they're out of the house, or at least they can provide for themselves. So that's, depending on how old your kids are, that could be 20 years down the road, 15 years down the road, 10 years down the road. Next up is how long will it take me to pay off the mortgage? Like, at what year will I be, mortgage free? Is that 10, 15, again, 20 years down the road? That's going to help guide me in my timeline. And then third off is how long will it take me to become debt free and build a really nice retirement nest egg, like enough money in retirement that again, I don't have to worry about making more money, or if I was to pass away, my spouse would be okay. And usually for most people, that's about $1 million, where that really is a comfortable spot. And for most people, if you get debt free and you start to invest and build wealth, most people can in 12 to 15 years can become millionaires. It's not, it doesn't take 20, 30, 40. I mean, for some it can, but for most people in 15, maybe 20 years, you can hit that millionaire status. So think about it this way. In 20 years, your kids are usually old enough, they're out of the house, mortgage has been paid for. And if you save and do the stuff that we teach and how to do it, most people within 20 years could be millionaires or close to it, close enough to it that they've got enough money to provide for themselves into those retirement years. And so for most people, we kind of say you generally need maybe 20, maybe 25, maybe maximum 30 years of insurance to get you to that age and stage of life. Now, that age and stage of life, when you're debt free, you've got a nice nest egg, the kids have moved on, the house is paid for in full. At that point, it's a choice whether or not you want to continue to have insurance. It's not necessarily a need anymore or a necessity anymore, but it's a choice. And at that point, you can choose to continue, get another policy, or you can say, no, I'm self sufficient. We are good. And we don't need insurance anymore. Okay, so that's the criteria that I look at. That's how I kind of judge: does someone need insurance? Does someone not need insurance? How long do they need insurance for? The next question is how much. How much insurance should I get? Should I get 100,000? You know, most if you work at a 9 to 5, if you work for a company, most companies will provide you a insurance policy that usually it's a bit different for everyone, but usually is a year to 2 years of your income. So if you make $70,000 a year, usually you get a $140,000 life insurance policy. If you were to pass away, that would get paid out to your spouse. Is that enough? Well, not really. You got to think about this. If you were to pass away, what were the things your spouse would need to pay for, or your kids would need covered to continue at their lifestyle? Because the last thing you want to do is, if you were to pass away, the last thing you want to do is have to uproot the kids or change lifestyle drastically, right? And so, what are the things we'd have to continue to supply and pay for that would continue to allow your kids to live in the lifestyle they're currently in? So maybe there's sports and activities. Maybe there's a cleaner now you would have to hire in the house to clean the house while one of the spouses work, if that's the case. Um, Maybe there's a food prep or meal planning service that would now have to come into play. Maybe there would be some babysitting or again, some sports that they'd be in to occupy some of their time, right? So you got to think of what it would cost to cover that, and you want to do it more long term, right? And so yeah, $140,000 could cover that for a short period of time, but eventually that money would run out, right? And then what? And so what we generally recommend is people get usually 10 to 12 times their current income in a term life insurance policy. So think about 10 times, if you make $70,000 a year, 10 times your income is about $700,000 of term insurance. If you make $100,000 a year, that's $1 million of term insurance. And if you were to pass away, that would get paid out tax free. And then your spouse and your kids be able to use that money to continue lifestyle after you're gone. Now, the good thing with term insurance is it doesn't cost that much. I mean, depending on how old you are and your health and all that, it's going to vary. But $1 million in term insurance for most people, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, maybe $60 a month to have that coverage. Right. And that's what that would look like. That's what that would be like if you were to go get insurance. So number one, is there a need? That's what the first question you got to answer. If there's a need, okay, then how much longer is the need there for? That's going to guide your timeline. Two, if you look at your current income, um, if you were to 10 times your current income, then that would give you the amount of insurance you need. Now, if you're a stay-at-home parent and don't have an income, well, that doesn't mean you don't get life insurance. In fact, you need life insurance for sure if you're a stay-at-home. And even though you're not paid for it, you do have, you do contribute in a way that would, if you were to pass away, we would need to cover that. So if you're a stay-at-home parent, usually we recommend 3, 4, $500,000. In your case, okay, to cover you, maybe a bit more. All right. And then yeah, we got timeline, we've talked about how much, we talked about if there's a need. And then there's different types of insurances out there. There's whole life, there's universal life. Generally, but let me separate it. There's really two categories of insurances. So you've heard whole life, universal life, participating, term 100. There's a whole bunch of names out there. But really there's two types of insurances. There's term insurance, and then there's what we call cash value insurance. Term insurance is the cheapest. It's just pure insurance. That's what you're buying, that's what you're paying for. Cash value insurance usually has a investment component to it. Okay, so what that means is you get a little bit of insurance, but then the company says we're going to take your money, we're going to invest it through for you, we're going to grow it, la di da da. You can borrow against it tax free, all this stuff. For the majority of you, for like 99% of people that are going to watch this and listen to this, I'm going to tell you right now, term insurance is the way you need to go. It's the simplest. It makes the most amount of sense. It's the way to go. Cash value insurance, universal, participating, whole life, all that stuff can make sense in certain situations, but for the majority of people, it doesn't make sense. For the majority of people, you can build wealth way faster outside of a cash value insurance. In fact, you can build wealth way faster outside of cash value than what they tell you here. And maybe we'll do another video on that someday. But for most people, it's the goal would be to have term insurance, and then from there, just cover you for the amount of time you think you're going to need insurance for. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I know that went a little longer there, but that's what insurance looks like. All right. Now, another question here that came through is let's see here. For those who have bought a house after divorce and are mechanically inclined, okay, I've been renting since my separation in 2017. I am finally ready to make the leap into owning a home again. But I'm terrified of how to maintain the home on my own. My ex was the one who would crawl under the house and, heat the frozen pipes, took care of the issues when the furnace wasn't working, installed new bathroom vanities, etc. I was the one who helped research the project and kept life running while he was completing them. Okay, got it. Let's see. I don't have local family, and I'm new to the state, so no local friends either. The idea of owning again sounds amazing in theory, but the thought of having no one to brainstorm maintenance issues, solutions with is overwhelming enough that it could, that if I could find a single family rental that allowed dogs and had a pool, I'd probably never buy. Okay, great question. So the way I see it, and I'm like you, I'm not really mechanically inclined. If you give me a hammer, it's actually very hazardous. I'm not good. I cause more trouble than I do fixing things. So I'm like you. I'm not mechanically inclined. But what I did decide years ago when I realized I did not that build, I was not strong in that area of fixing and renovating all that stuff. I could do a little bit, but I can't do a lot. I'm not very good at it. What I decided years ago is getting a really good emergency fund would be the best way that I would get into home ownership. And I really believe home ownership is the way to go long term. Now, short term, renting might make sense for you, but long term, I mean, I love the equity you get in a house that continues to go up long term. To me, that's amazing. Plus, if you pay off the mortgage one day, the idea that you have rent security. You're not going to be, I've seen friends that have rented their whole lives and I've seen them have to leave house after house after house because the person says, well, we're selling the house. And maybe they are. But that sometimes just means we're kicking you out to bring new people in and raise our rent. Right. And so you've always got what I call rent insecurity in most cases, not in all, but in most cases. And the great thing about home ownership is you get that home, you really get that rent security side of things taken care of, where once the house is paid off, there is no there's no mortgage. You don't have to worry about how much rent's going to go up or if you're going to have to move at some point. All of that. So I love that aspect. I love the equity aspect. If you own good homes in good areas, generally it's over time it's going to go up, which is great. It's going to add value to your net worth. So to answer your question about what do I do about the maintenance and all that stuff, get a really, really, really good emergency fund. That's what I would do. A really strong, that 3 to 6 months. So for most people, 3 to 6 months of expenses is going to be 10, 15, 20, maybe 25, $30,000, and put that aside. And that is just to fix the house. That's for you to go hire someone to come renovate. That's for you to, if the furnace breaks, to go replace the furnace. If the roof leaks, to hire someone to come repair the roof, or all of that stuff. That's the way I see getting around, having the inability to do that stuff yourself, and getting over the worry and the anxiety of not owning a home because you're afraid of all the expenses that are going to come with it, right? And then good general rule of thumb as well is, put away roughly, if you can, 5 to 10% of like your house's costs or your house's value, away a year. So, if you own a house that's, let's say, $500,000, 10% would be, actually, that's probably 2%, probably too high. 5% might be too high in that example. That rule of thumb would work really well when houses were like $100,000. But maybe you put 1 to 2% away. So, $5,000, $6,000 a year just away into a maintenance fund, that's there to cover the house. But I would not avoid owning a house for that reason. Now if you just say I don't want to hassle with property taxes and home ownership and all that stuff, that's cool. And if to me, that's a valid reason. But to say like I don't know how to fix the house, so I'm not going to own a house, I wouldn't do that. I would go buy the house, get a good emergency fund put aside. That will solve that problem. And then you also get the equity, of the house growing up in value. Plus, you get I call the rent security situation where you never have to worry about, your payments doubling or tripling, which has happened, right? Or having to replace and move into a new place every 3 to 5 years. That is a pain in the butt. So there we go. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. But that's everything for today. Great questions. Keep asking away. Happy to get those questions answered for you guys. Take action, get your results, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.